Hello everybody, Calamity here, and welcome to the final Hexerei video in the series. That's right, I said final. I will not really be covering Durin, at least not anytime soon, because the Hexerei stuff isn't really a buff for Durin. It's more like unlocking his full kit. And with the Hexerei stuff, I wanted to go over how older characters are being impacted, I'm sorry for the pun, by these changes, and Venti is one of those characters, and Durin really isn't, since he's brand new. That being said, though, let's actually take a look at what happens to Venti once you unlock his full Hexerei potential. Coming on over here to the buffs, just in case you forgot how to activate it, you need to do his little quest, and then he'll become a Hexerei character. Then you need to have 2 Hexerei characters in the party to activate the effects. And what happens when there's 2 Hexerei characters? 2 things, but let's start with the small thing first. While his burst is active, for 4 seconds after a character triggers a swirl reaction, that character's damage is increased by 50%, and Venti's Storm Eye will deal 135% of its original damage. Now, we love buffs. This is free buffs for whoever you're pairing him up with. So if you were to pair him with, say, a Durin, with an off-field DPS Durin, he's going to get a straight-up 50% damage increase just for existing and swirling with Venti, which is easy. Not only that, Venti's own Storm Eye damage will be significantly increased. But wait, there's more. So we come on over to his now normal attack talent. Here's what it looks like before, right? There's no unique aspects about it. It's just a regular normal attack talent. And then here, once you activate the Hexerei stuff, 2 things will happen when you use his burst. The first thing that will happen is his normal attacks will turn into what's called Wind Sunder arrows that deal even more ANEMO damage to opponents along the path. And then when your normal attacks hit opponents, Storm Eye's duration is increased by 1 second, and its cooldown is increased by half a second. I thought this was weird, but it's overall, I guess it's not terrible. It's just like I thought it should be reduced, not increased. You can only do this effect twice every 0.1 second every time you use his burst. So at max, it's only going to be a 2-second increase, duration increase, and a 1-second increase cooldown. But I mean, obviously, it evens itself out because you have a longer duration, so you don't need to burst as often. So it's completely fine. And then there's the multipliers. You can see here, if we go before and after, they're still the same multipliers. So you're like, how much more ANEMO damage is this first part talking about? Right here. The Wind Sunder arrows do 240% flat of your normal attack damage. So all of these multipliers are getting a significant increase across the board, which is why Venti, as you'll see in the showcase later on, is doing significantly more damage than he has ever done in the past. That being said, for those of you that invested heavily in your Venti back in the day by getting constellations and whatnot, congrats! Your investment is about to pay off heavily here, because basically Venti gets a ton of free damage from his constellations now. So if we go back to his constellations, I used to make fun of his constellations, and I still kind of do, because they're a bit silly. That's the downside of being the first limited character in the game, right? So his old C1 was so that when you fired a charge shot or an aim shot, you fired 2 additional arrows that deal 33% of his original arrow's damage. Now, we don't really use charge shots with Venti because, you know, that's not part of his damage. But now, with the Hexerei version of this constellation, you're firing 2 extra arrows alongside your Wind Sunder arrow. So these arrows will deal 20% of Venti's original arrow damage and can be triggered every quarter of a second. This is actually really good because you'll be doing this all the time now with the new Venti. And now you're basically just adding 40% more damage, is another way to look at this, to each normal attack every quarter of a second. So just overall, this is going to be a ton more damage for your Venti. C2 is all about the elemental skill. I still think this one is pretty silly because here's the old one, right? So when you use this skill, you reduce ANEMO resistance by 12 and physical resistance by 12, which is so silly because you wouldn't think to do a physical team with Venti, but here we are. And then if you launch enemies, they suffer another 12% ANEMO and physical resistance shred for a whopping 24%. But the downside to this is that it's not going to affect any bosses or elite enemies, right? They won't get launched upwards by your skill. However, with the new Hexerei version now, his skill will now resist or decrease ANEMO resistance and physical resistance by 24% for 10 seconds. No longer needs to have them launch into the air, which is a really great quality of life change already. In addition, though, when you use his burst, Venti will gain what's called a wherever a breeze blows effect, and then the cooldown of his skill will be reset. And then after you use a wind thunder arrow to hit an opponent, there's also a 25% chance to gain another wherever a breeze blows effect again. So basically, you can have permanent uptime with a little bit of help from RNG of the ANEMO resistance and physical resistance shred. Funny enough, though, you don't need it to last that long because the duration of your burst with the wind thunder arrows, you know, it's going to be, you know, mostly in line with this resistance shred. So it's not too bad. I mean, like, just pop this before you do your skill or your burst, excuse me. Wind thunder arrows, and then right as your wind thunder arrows are about to end, you can do another skill to shred some more resistance, I suppose. Up to you, though. Or you could try to interweave some nice skills in between your wind thunder shots. So we see here on the second part, not only are you getting a free cooldown reset on your skill, you're also getting a 300% increased damage for the elemental skill as well. So this is a nice spike in damage for his skill. Skipping all the way to C4, let's go back to the old one first. So this is so when you pick up an orb or a particle, 25% ANEMO damage for 10 seconds. This was honestly a really nice consolation for Venti himself, but in the past, because he wasn't really a main DPS, this wasn't that great. But because he is now, it's actually pretty great. And not only that, they made it a lot easier. All you have to do is use his skill or his burst. It doesn't even say you have to hit an enemy. As soon as you use it, bam, 25% ANEMO damage bonus. Not just for him, but his own active party members, which is... Honestly, this one's a little because the party members with Venti aren't all going to be ANEMO. You're not going to do like a four-man ANEMO team. That's just a little silly, right? So it's just free damage for him, and it's much easier to get using his skill and burst. Last but not least, let's take a look at his old C6, which granted yet an additional ANEMO resistance shred of 20%. Remember, this will stack now with your C2 and the newly buffed C2. So you already get the 24% shred. Now you have a 44% ANEMO resistance shred, which is crazy. That is absolutely insane. And then let's go back to the before. So any other elements that get absorbed with his burst, their elemental resistance will also get decreased by 20. So pair him up with, again, Durin, Mona, for example, and everyone's doing a bit more damage, which is always welcome. Additionally, Venti's damage will gain a crit damage bonus of 100%. Like, they don't even have to be sucked up here. We're talking, they just have to get hit by the burst, which Venti will auto-aim for you. And as long as you see a tick of damage, congrats. They now have minus 44% ANEMO resistance shred. Most of that coming from your C2, right? And then, or half of it, I should say. And now, whenever Venti hits them with anything, whether it's a boosted C2 elemental skill or his boosted wind thunder arrows, boom, 100% crit damage. Insane damage increase overall for those of you that decided to invest heavily into Venti. He is now honestly, I'm going to say this right now. I usually say this for the end of the video. If you have a C6 Venti and you build him properly, get his weapon, I honestly, I might be overselling this as a content creator. S tier. I honestly think he's S tier. Definitely comparable with a lot of the current ANEMO DPSs in the game. Chaska, Wanderer, definitely Zhao. Sorry, Zhao mains, but yeah, Venti becomes living up to his name as an Archon, he becomes legit a powerhouse. And I'm not talking about just for groups of enemies, right? No, I'm talking for bosses now. He is a boss killer with this insane build. But obviously, this is still whale territory, not ideal for most players. But that being said, though, even at C0 and without his signature weapon, I would still place Venti in A tier. I just think he becomes S, triple S, broken tier, whatever tier lists are these days. with all of his constellations, of course, but you could say the same about a lot of characters. As I was covering Hexerei characters this week, when we got to like their builds and stuff, I would say like, yeah, their builds and stuff don't really change. You still play them the same, etc., etc. Venti, I want to say, is the only character, at least for now, where you need to completely change his build. Like, gone are the days where we're using Veritas and Veneer on him, and I'll get to that. I'll get to the reason why. But first, let's start with the weapon. First of all, Elegy for the end. This is not it anymore. This is not good for him. He does not need that much energy recharge. This was his old signature weapon, by the way. But yeah, like, none of this is that good. Like, yeah, sure, he'll give himself some elemental mastery and some attack percentage, but we don't need... Like, the attack percentage is nice, but that's the only good thing about this bow at all. That's it. You can do better than this. So if you have any 5-star bow that has like good offensive stats, like Aqua Simulacra or Thundering Pulse, which is also really good. I mean, if you want to go more quote-unquote free to play, if you got lucky and you got an Amos bow in the standard banner pulls or whatever, this is okay too. Nice base damage and nice attack percentage substat as well. And it's also going to increase his normal attack damage by 12% at Refinement 1. This is all good. We don't really care about the charge attack portion, but as a stat stick, it's a solid one. And then obviously, yeah, his signature weapon is gonna be the best one at Refinement 1 even, and like there's a ton of good optional 5-star bows you can give him if you have the characters that if you have them. If we're looking for more 4-star options, look none other than the Rust. So the Rust is basically the Amos bow, but with way less stats. You can see 510 base, 41.3% substat of attack percentage. However, we make up for that loss of damage with the Refinement 5. If we see here, we increase normal attack damage by 80%, and we decrease charge attack damage by 10%. I think this is his best free-to-play bow, or 4-star bow at the very least, just because, you know, that's what the Wind Sunder arrows are. They're normal attack arrows, and we're doing the normal attack talent to activate them. So that's going to help your damage quite a lot. And I honestly, there's like no other reason to recommend any other 4-star weapon. It's his best one. Obviously, if you don't have it, just new or unlucky, try to give him some sort of bow that has some offensive stats. Like, if we want to talk free-to-play friendly here, like crit or the slingshot with the crit rate is okay. Next up are artifacts, and just like I said before, you do not want to give him Veritas and Veneer anymore, at least the 4-piece if we're going for the Hexerei build, because if case we forgot what the 4-star or 4-piece effect does, it only increases your swirl damage, and then you decrease elemental resistance of the element infused with swirl. That does not include ANEMO itself, so you're only decreasing Pyro, Cryo, Hydro, or Electro. And that's not useful for Venti anymore. So what can we give him instead? Right now, he doesn't really have too many options. Like, it's okay just to give him like 2-piece Veritas and Veneer, 2-piece Gladiator's Finale, because these just give generic stats. And yes, he does want, you know, ANEMO damage or attack percentage. I mean, the same thing could be said about the Unfinished Reverie, Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy, also giving attack percentage. There's also the Nighttime of the Whispering Wood set, giving attack percentage. There's also if we go down here to the best set technically right now is the Desert Pavilion Chronicle, and I picked this set because first of all, ANEMO damage bonus on 2-piece. 4-piece though, when a charged attack hits opponents, the equipping character's normal attack speed will increase by 10%, and they will get another 40% increase of normal charge and plunging attack damage for 15 seconds. This is perfect for Venti's duration on his burst. This buff will last just about as long as his burst will. I think a little bit longer. And remember, when it says a charge attack hits opponents, that does not mean you have to do a fully charged bow hit. It could just be like a quick aim and then hit an opponent as soon as possible, and then just, you know, get out of aim mode, and then bam, you have the buffs from the Desert Pavilion Chronicle. And this is honestly what I'm working for Venti. It's just like lack of time, lack of resin, and then just, you know, bad RNG on some of these pieces. So I'll get one eventually. It's just going to take me a couple of, at my rate of luck, probably a couple weeks of farming, just with how RNG be. But yeah, this is definitely something I would recommend if you want to give this to your Venti. Another one you could also give him is the Mary Chelsea Hunter set, because if you pair him up with Farina, this is never a bad set if you have Farina, just because, you know, you'll always get the free crit rate easily. Other than that, though, yeah, he doesn't really have like a crazy good set for him just yet. There could be one in the future, but for now, if you want to give him, in my opinion, the best one is this one. The Desert Pavilion is the best one to give. And yeah, gone are also the days where it's like only get energy recharge and elemental mastery for Venti, and then if you can, crit rate, crit damage or good and stuff, like, nah. So yeah, here, crit rate, crit damage, good. You don't need energy recharge on him as much. Remember, his burst only costs 60, and thanks to one of his ascension talents, it actually reduces the cost by 15. So he only has a 45 energy cost, and then if we pair him up with a character that has like a Favonius weapon, even less energy needs. So yes, some energy as a subset can be okay, but you don't need to invest heavily into it anymore. Attack percentage also going to be good. Elemental mastery, not really, because you're just swirling, right? But swirl isn't like a melt or a vaporize where it has a big damage multiplier attached to it. Like, it's okay, but these three stats right here are going to be your go-to. Same for the sands. We just want attack percentage now. We don't need the other two. Here, anemo damage bonus or attack percentage are going to be your choices, and then circlet is still going to be crit rate or crit damage. Your choice depending on your weapon and your subsets and all that stuff. So yeah, different build completely for Venti. And then constellations, we already went over. Talents, make sure you actually invest into your normal attack talent now. In the past, I used to say to skip this, but now we don't want to. This is where your Wind Sunder arrows come from, and we need them to be as strong as possible. So even crowning this would not be a crazy idea if you want to min-max his damage. Last but not least, what are some teams we can put Venti in? To be honest, if you're going for the Hexerei stuff, his builds are kind of, I want to say like niche or like very specific, because let's just do a Hexerei filter here. Because for one, you need a Hexerei character. It doesn't matter who, you just need another one. Well, I guess it does matter for optimal reasons, but yeah. Let's ignore Farazan and Benny here for a second, and let's just talk about Hexerei characters. So obviously Mona is a good option because Omen debuff. Not to mention most Monas equip the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers, right? So that's another big attack buff to Venti. So not a bad idea there. Albedo is okay. Remember, we went over his buffs. Like, he can definitely buff a character, but it's just like the lack of synergy between Anemo and Geo is kind of awkward. But you know, if you can still use them together, it's not like a terrible idea. Sucrose is a little weird because they both do the same thing. They both pull in a bunch of enemies with their skills, or well, with Venti's burst. And you know, like I said before, he doesn't really need that much energy, and Sucrose provides so much. She also increases elemental mastery, which doesn't help Venti that much, but her other Hexerei stuff could help a little bit. It's just weird. Like, yeah, she's an option, but there's definitely some better ones out there. Fischl is okay for proccing Swirl back in the day, but now her Hexerei buffs have no synergy at all with Venti because she only buffs Overloaded or Electrocharged. And that's not what we're doing with Venti. So she's kind of in a weird spot here. Like, she could be okay to do single target damage along with Venti with Oz at C6. But other than that, nah, it's just an awkward pick. Razor and Klee are both main DPSs, so they want their time on the field. Venti is now a main DPS, so you could, in theory, use them together if you want to, but overall, it's still going to be this awkward, like, you have two main DPSs on the team that want to be on the field as much as possible. What do you do? Like, it's a little weird. So they don't really work that well with Venti. Durin is going to be perfect because he can be built as an off-field DPS character and just do his pyro damage off-field, and this is this is great because that's all we need. And he activates your Hexerei stuff. So when it comes to teams, you know, we just need to buff Venti's damage, and that's exactly what Farazan and Bennett do. Like, Farazan obviously shreds Anemo resistance. I don't have C2, I don't have C6. So the the Anemo resistance shred from Farazan is going to be perfect here, and mine's at C6. So even more reasons to use her here. And she also buffs Anemo damage, and she provides a lot of energy, not just for her, but for Venti as well, and for the team because she has a Favonius Warbow. And then I already talked about Mona, and obviously Benti for heals, or Benti, excuse me, Bennett for heals, and for the enormous attack buff that's going to make Venti even scarier. So that is, in my opinion, right here, going to be one of his best teams. I would just swap out Mona for Durin just for more overall damage, though, since her damage is pretty low. At least mine is at C1, and she's also using the Thrilling Tail, so her personal damage isn't that high. But with that being said, let's go actually showcase his damage. Before we begin, you might have seen a video on Reddit or Twitter showcasing a C0 R1 Venti versus a C6 R5 Wanderer, and they fought the Dragon Lava statue boss in Netland. Just to be fair, both of those teams had Durin built. Mine's not built, so I'm not going to go over there. But yeah, even with those two characters being compared in similar teams on the same boss, Venti was only like 2 seconds behind a fully invested Wanderer, which is kind of crazy to say. And honestly, it's not that much of an exaggeration. Like, again, if I had my Durin here, I'm sure this boss right here that I'm about to fight is going down in like 15 seconds as well. And if I had Venti's signature weapon too. But yeah, anyways, enough yapping. Let's get buffs out. So you want to always burst. But yeah, look at these damage numbers coming out of Venti. Holy, right? Like, that's insane. Okay, right now we're just gonna build alts. There we go. And then we go again. Oop, a little bit of damage there, my bad. But yeah, this damage is insanely good. Again, if I just had like Durin's damage himself contributing, this thing would probably be dead by now. Anyways, let's finish off the boss. He's okay, he's just spinning. Good thing we can just do this. And then we can just do damage from this far. Look at that. And he's dead. Was my run slow? Yes. Because honestly, my Mona is not in a good spot. But you guys saw the damage. There was a lot of big numbers there. A lot of fast numbers coming out of Venti of all characters, which is like so insane. Like almost half a decade later, we're seeing Venti play in a completely new way, just thanks to a couple buffs and a couple of changes to his kit. And now he's like this scary DPS monster. And honestly, for those of you that like Yoimiya, he plays very similar. So Yoimiya, you just tap skill, and then now Yoimiya becomes like this DPS powerhouse, or at least she used to be. With Venti, it's his burst. So once you pop his burst, now he's like crazy DPS god. And, you know, the biggest difference is that Yoimiya has a long cooldown for her skill, whereas Venti, not so long of a cooldown, and the lack of like needing so much energy recharge makes it so that you can burst off cooldown fairly quickly. So yeah, I would say Venti is very, very strong now, and I just need to pad out his stats better, like with again a more appropriate artifact set with the Desert Pavilion, and then once I get Durin as well, and he's doing his damage as well, like I'm pretty sure we're gonna melt bosses. Like I don't even have to see it to know it's gonna be a thing. Like his damage is great. Is he the best ANEMO DPS in the game? Honestly, with C6, I don't know because I don't have C6 everybody else. But I definitely think he's like a top contender. And he's definitely something you should consider, though, if your Venti has just been sitting on the shelf collecting a bunch of dust all these years because you just haven't been using him and haven't had a need to use him. Well, why not turn him into another main DPS for you to choose from in like Imaginarium Theater, Spiral Abyss, etc., and you know, just see what he can do. See how he performs for you. And let me know in the comments how it turns out, because I think he's really, really strong. And if you like this sort of content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a lot. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.